Tempo ordinario is a term I use quite often in my videos, and if you have ever wondered what the heck it means, then this video is for you. So welcome everybody to Authentic Sound, and also here to this 15th-16th century chapel. It has been a year since I've recorded my last video here. My name is Wim Winters, and this channel is all about exploring the music from Bach to Beethoven and beyond, with a single goal to inspire you on your journey as a musician or as a music lover. I remember still very good one of the first organ lessons I got in Amsterdam in 1990. 18 years old and just moved from a small little village to a world city, where those organ lessons from Jacques van Oortmersen were not only a delight to receive, but also little islands of silence, sitting behind the desk of those historical organs in the midst of Amsterdam, Haarlem or Alkmaar. No smartphones nor digital cameras in those days, so I don't even have one single photo to share. Can you believe that? I feel old now, but it shows only how much all has changed in such short time. Anyway, one day I asked Jacques how to find the tempo for a particular piece, and he would often refer to it as the right tempo. It was then, if I remember well, one of Bach's chorals of the Orgelbuchlein that I first heard the term tempo ordinario, for which I was told the tempo was about 60 for every quarter note. You wouldn't believe perhaps today, but at 18 I was much too shy to ask Jacques for any details, and believe me, I was not the only one to just accept that for being a fact. Later, of course, I started to do my own research, and as expected, Jacques was of course right. The tempo ordinario for, let's say, a normal 4/4 time signature is about 60. You read that often in historical sources, but that's for another time. But what does tempo ordinario mean, and what is a normal 4/4? Well, there is a lot to say on this, but let us start in this video by the beginning. Tempo ordinario, in French also named l'ordinaire, is nothing more than the basic tempo for a given time signature. So that's an important statement already. Any given time signature has a basic tempo that can be altered in many ways, but where the changes always start from that general accepted basic pulse. That basic tempo, and that basic pulse, by the way, was not something that belonged to the domain of the individual taste of a particular composer. On the contrary, it was something that was true for all music written and not restricted to a small region either. There are no substantial differences in the way Bach used the tempo ordinario and, let's say, Scarlatti, as there are no basic differences in this regard between Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and even Chopin. The basic pulse increased a little bit towards the end of the 18th century, but not more than about 10%. But let's save that also for another video. Often, you will find the second as a reference tempo. Again, we'll not go into details here, there's a lot to say, but there is one gigantic trap into which surprisingly many students and also musicians fall. The tempo ordinario is the basic tempo for a given signature, time signature indeed, but on the crucial condition that the notation follows that same basic structure. A difficult sentence, but let's look at an example here. Take Bach's F-sharp minor prelude and fugue, for instance, the one I've uploaded recently. I link it here on the screen. That's a perfect example of a true tempo ordinario piece. But be aware that the element of notation here is indeed important. It is also something really important to understand if one wants to research metronome numbers. Without basic knowledge on that relationship, there is little to nothing one can say about a given metronome number in the context of a musical performance. If you ever have a discussion on double or single beat with a musician or musicologist, just ask some basic questions on tempo ordinario and you'll be surprised how few will be able to give you structural feedback on that. But let's stay here at our Bach prelude in F sharp minor. It has no so-called tempo indication, no Italian tempo word, and often you'll hear that there is no tempo indication, so Bach left us in a gray zone on what tempo he wants us to perform his piece in. But nothing could be farther from the truth. If there is no tempo indication, it often, not always, means the piece must go in the tempo ordinario. Now, forget about the not always and focus on this example. Bach used common time here. The piece indeed is set up clearly in a pattern with 4 quarter notes. They all have and hold their natural position in the bar structure. So you hear a clear, strong accent on 1, a slightly less but still strong accent on 3, with 2 rather unaccentuated beats on 2 and 4, where those beats, the number 2 and 4, still are present. In a way, this time signature is the one you have learned about in your first solfège lesson. So, next thing is to see if the musical structure cooperates with this pattern of heavy beats on 1 and 3. In order to allow this structure to be heard, the composer must avoid a harmonic density that is too big. Here, Bach clearly stays within the lines. If you would replace the music with its harmonic chords on which it is based, you'd see a normal chord progression per quarter note or half note even, but a progression that is in line with the system of having, or better, allowing a heavy beat on 1 plus 3. Imagine an harmonic structure where Bach would have inserted modulations or even harmonic changes per 8 notes. Then he would have shifted from the tempo ordinario, literally a tempo of around a second, to a slower one. As for instance in the fugue in C major is the case. One could say the basic pulse there goes as well per quarter note, but you would face much more resistance while playing exactly because of the much denser and more complex harmonic progressions. Again, I'm just touching the basic principles here. If you like, we can make a series of videos on this subject, really going into detail. But now back to the F sharp minor prelude. Next to harmonic progressions comes the note values the composer uses. What is the fastest structural note value? In this case, of common time, 16th notes are as a rule the fastest structural note values if one wants to stick to the tempo ordinario speed. That rule is not violated here. However, one side remark: in this particular case, there is an almost constant flow of 16th notes with a decent amount of rather big jumps, especially those jumps who on its own of course fit into that rhythmical pattern, but are primarily targeting an expressive element, an element of expression, rhetorical figures that need a certain amount of cantabile quality. And in order to give them that quality, they require time. That has an impact on the basic tempo, and you'll notice that in my performance as well. My tempo for this piece is more between 54 and 56 than 60. So, to summarize, common time with 16th notes as fastest note values and an harmonic pattern that allows the first and third beat to be heavy will have as a basic tempo 60 for the quarter note. Here, because of the presence of some 16th notes that need time because of intervals, that tempo is taken somewhat lower. Interesting always to compare with the metronome numbers Czerny gives for Bach. Czerny to me, without any doubt, being a teacher who was very much aware of the true 18th century tradition. He gives quarter note 100 for this piece, adding the tempo word allegro moderato. Now, if you follow the channel a little bit longer, you'll know the true reading of this metronome number by now, and you'll see an interesting connection as well. In short, the quarter note in the metronome equation represents what the Germans called takt, but in the old meaning of taktus, tempo, even Schlag, sometimes even called a binary unity. So not takt in the sense of bar. So the quarter note in the metronome number here does not represent the duration of a quarter note in the piece, but it is the unity of two parts, in this case two 8 notes. Two 8 notes together forms the binary unity of the quarter note. As the conductor's arm goes up and down, or the metronome left and right, they visually create that binary unity that we need to feel the tempo. Up, down, left, right, left, right. So the number of the metronome equation simply represents the speed of those individual parts, the Taktteilen, in this case the 8 notes. We today would write Czerny's tempo as quarter note 50, so a little bit slower than my performance, but basically still in the same tempo range. Let me encourage you to try it for yourself, both tempi, quarter note 50 and my tempo quarter note 56. And notice that while playing, the basic structure of the notation is still present, but due to the even slight tempo change, the color of the piece changes, not the character, since the tempo shift is too small to accomplish that. But the density of those dark clouds of this F-sharp minor feeling definitely can be adjusted. That sweet spot, where small changes result in a lot of difference, that's where you want to be as a musician, and where your audience wants to have your music as well. You will lose that expressive elements once you increase tempi a lot. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to make more in-depth videos as this one, for instance on the tempo ordinario. A lot of questions still are to be answered. What if Bach does add tempo words like allegro? And what if he doesn't? Is there still an indicator as to take another tempo than just the speed in this second range? And yes, there is, but that's for later. Stay tuned if you don't want to miss those videos. No better way than to subscribe to this channel, and also hit the bell icon next to the subscription button. That will allow YouTube to send you notifications every time a new video is uploaded, or for the live streams. Or become a member of our Patreon community of over 70 people right now, where you not only support the things we do, help us make more like this, but also get cool rewards besides a monthly hangout where we can talk on basically anything, and also Bach tempo questions. Thanks for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.